the capacity, of fake news to cause great harm is not in doubt. Is not in doubt at all. And time again, practically every day, I mean, I see some news that, especially news that affects me or affects my work in one way or the other, which is fake. But I think the mass publication of deliberate falsehood has, been with us for as long as people have spoken to each other. For as long as men and women have exchanged words, there has been the realization that it's also possible to manipulate words in a way that will dissemble or mislead. I think it was Winston Churchill who said famously that a lie gets halfway around the world before the truth has a chance to get its pants on. This was more than half a century ago. But of course, today with social media and the internet, that lie will already be halfway around the moon also before the truth even realizes what is going on or where its pants are. You have gone everywhere. But why fake news is now news is obviously because of the greater dimensions of content, of the harm that it can do, and then the scope. A lot of these are, of course, on account of the advances in technology, especially in the past 2 decades or so. But I think that aside from the damage done to the credibility and integrity of public information, the capacity of fake news to cause alarm and fear and even fatal violence has been demonstrated again and again. One of the great worries should be, for us, what harm is done to public information. I think that the time may come, if nothing is done, when nothing will be believed or nothing will be believable. Because as technology improves in its capacity to manipulate and its capacity to dissemble, after a while, there will be perfect videos using artificial intelligence and all of the other tools of digital technology. There will be perfect tools. There will just be perfect videos of people speaking, of somebody making a speech that they never made, of events that never happened. And of course, it's become more and more difficult to distinguish between what is true and what is untrue. I think that if we discredit public information in that way, it's a massive danger for society itself. I mean, aside from the capacity of fake news to cause physical harm and all that, I think that once we destroy the believability of public information, then really the means of communicating with each other have been solved forever. So today, I think that there are 3 important issues for us to look at. The first is, to what extent can we hold local players, especially local media owners, to account? I think that what we have at the moment, and usually, and I think it's been pointed out already, that I think it was Uche who pointed out that a lot of the disinformation obviously is on social media. The traditional press is obviously much more responsible. And the simple reason why they're much more responsible is because there is consequence. Yeah. The traditional media it's easier to sue the traditional media. They are bound by local laws, and it's much easier to hold them to account. But social media is under multi-jurisdictional regulation, if there is any such thing. But I think there is an opportunity here for more collaboration, more multi-jurisdictional collaboration. In other words, should we be looking at some kind of convention, some kind of agreements between countries, between nations, that help us to regulate social media much more effectively? The second point for me is how to deal with consequence without, of course, infringing on freedom of information and also freedom of the press. Because just as Prof pointed out, everybody is the press now. So freedom of the press means my freedom to own a blog, my freedom to disseminate information. But the question, of course, is how do we regulate that without infringing on these fundamental freedoms? I think that at the end of the day, it will come to some kind of a balance, because really it will be impossible to regulate social media without, in some senses, substantially infringing fundamental rights, especially freedom of expression. There is no way that you're going to leave that power in the hands of government or in the hands of the legislature without you're finding some level of overbearing activity on the part of the government or the legislature. So how do we create that balance? I hope that the conversations that you have here today will help at least in clarifying some of that. But one final thought for me is really, to what extent, should we hold even traditional media to account for the kinds of information? Because today you find a lot of information from social media also going into traditional media, into print. What I find is that there is really no attempt to interrogate. I mean, if it's not even obviously false, there really is no attempt to interrogate these things. And by that I mean not just fact-checking, but also some investigation on the part of the traditional media. So, for example, you expect that if somebody says this is fact and presents it as fact, you'd expect the newspaper itself to express some opinion based on its own investigation. But what you tend to find now is that somebody says, I say this. Then I'll be quoted as saying, Yemi Osinbajo said. Then the other fellow countered. And that's it. There is no independent. So the purveyor of the information doesn't do anything but just present these two facts. So these arguments continue forever. Nobody is able to say, okay, we've checked this out, especially traditional. We've checked this out, and this is what we found. Nobody really bothers with that. And I think that is important, that there is a bit more of that, so that we're able to come up, with some, so that the public at least is helped to make up its mind about different opinions and make up its mind about different views. And the same goes for fact, even verifiable facts. So somebody says the level of poverty in Nigeria is X%, but there is a source of the information. Even the newspapers would not say, okay, what the National Bureau of Statistics or what the World Bank says is X. So everything becomes a controversy because those who are responsible, the interlocutors and those who are responsible, are not doing their bit by at least presenting what the real facts are. So I think, going beyond just fact-checking, I think a bit of information and a bit more interrogation of some of these issues and offering some independent opinion might be quite helpful. Otherwise, I'd just like to say that I think that this conversation is very long overdue, and I hope that we're able to provide some direction for the way in which we should handle this big problem of fake news. And I hope that our deliberations here will eventually at least give us some light. As Prof has said, very often it's not just a matter of there being no smoke without a fire. There being a lot of smoke and no fire. Sometimes there's even no flicker whatsoever. There's nothing whatsoever. It's just a creation of the fertile imaginations of so many people. So I hope that we'll be able to find a way of resolving some of these issues. And I'll, of course, be very happy to be a part of whatever the conversations are and to advance this in whatever way we can. Thank you all very much.